How can you conclude something with low confidence? That's not a conclusion. I think the word you're looking for is guess. By the way, conclusion with low confidence is such a boy move. You know what I mean? Like you're dating someone and they go, babe, what are we? And you're like, Sarah, I can tell you for sure, I don't know. Now, even though they had low confidence, the Department of Energy came out and said COVID was a lab leak. And now every idiot I went to high school with is like, apologize to me right now, Hasan. I told you I was right. And if your hand is bigger than your face, you're gay. Now, to everybody touchdown dancing about this, how long have you been rocking with the Department of Energy? Oh, you've been with them since day one? Hey, what's your second favorite report from the Department of Energy? Now, personally, I love their report on walk-in freezers and coolers, but hey, that's just me because I'm a real one. But here's the key detail everybody's forgetting while they got the Twitter fingers. The Energy Department is one of 9 intelligence groups that have assessed COVID's origins. 2 have said lab leak, 5 say it came out of natural causes, and 2 say they don't know. And you know what? I personally side with them. I don't know what the is going on. FBI says this, NIC says that. I'm holding out until the DMV chimes in. Okay? All right? Now, here's the thing I'm wondering, okay? Why did this whole lab leak versus wet market thing become the Yankees versus Red Sox of the culture war in the first place? And to me, I think it's because when some people started saying it came from a lab, other people were like, hey, you can't say the Chinese are trying to poison everybody on planet Earth. That's racist. You should say COVID came from a wet market where Chinese people eat weird animals.
All right. So it's, I don't know what to say about this exactly. It's so interesting, just the desperation of still trying to make the people who were claiming that this was a lab leak all along the butt of the joke. Like, yeah, you see, you're still the stupid ones, you see, because, oh, you're all bragging on Twitter about how you were right and we owe you an apology or something like that. But really, you're stupid because, like, what other, how long have you been rocking with the Department of Energy? Or don't you know there's these 5 other intelligence agencies? By the way, I referred to the Department of Energy as an intelligence agency. I don't think that's right, but whatever. But you're so stupid because there's these 5 other agencies that have said it, they don't believe it's a lab leak or something like that. And it's just, look, as somebody who has dabbled in comedy for the last 15 years or so, it's just, look, if you're just trying to follow what's funny or what's hilarious here, the obvious butt of the joke would be the people who were denying that this was a lab leak theory. Now, you can come to this joke late in the game, as Jon Stewart kind of did last year, when he really did a masterful job, comedically speaking, of pointing out how hilarious it was to deny the likelihood of the fact that there was a coronavirus lab in Wuhan when there was an outbreak of a novel coronavirus in Wuhan. There's a lot of funny angles to go with here, but how desperate you have to be to do these mental gymnastics to say, no, the real joke here is the people who think this is an own for them or something. Okay. How long have you been rocking with the Department of Energy? Well, yeah, that's not really the point. Now, is it? I'd be quite happy to abolish the Department of Energy. I think it's ridiculous to have a federal Department of Energy, and I think that they are, let's just say, a net negative to our energy, needs. But the point here really has nothing to do with that. And for the funny thing is at the end there, Hasan's conclusion, if you really think about it, kind of, even though he's trying to point out how ridiculous it is that, like, oh, you're saying it's like well, the reason you couldn't say this is because it's racist. You couldn't say it came from a lab leak because that would be racist. And so what you're supposed to say is like, yeah, Chinese people are eating bats out in wild conditions, and they're like, okay, right. So yes, you're kind of correct in your comedic observation at the end there. It's ridiculous to say that one of those is racist, but the other one isn't. And in fact, you could make a really strong argument that it's more, whatever this means, that it's more like racist, or it would be creating more of a negative, impression of Chinese people to say that this virus emerged because Chinese people are like selling bats in these crazy wet markets that led to this outbreak of a global pandemic, versus like they were operating on, splicing up and enhancing viruses in a sophisticated lab. One of those sounds way more primitive and insane, and the other one sounds like, advanced and scientific, still crazy and evil. But anyway, the comedic point that he's making there is somewhat true. But what's the conclusion of that? It's not that. So why was it off limits to say the first one and not the second one? Well, because obviously it paints an entirely different picture. Like, look, it is one thing to say that COVID, this virus that upended the world and changed more about this country in a couple years than has changed in this country in my entire lifetime. And a lot has changed in this country in my entire life, like a lot. But nothing upended everything more than the response to COVID, okay? But it's a whole different ball game to say that, like, look, this is just one of those things. Like, there are these wet markets in China, and they're doing these crazy things that seem insane to us, but this is what they do there, and they're selling bats or whatever, and someone had some bat soup, and a virus came out of that, and it spread around. It's just kind of like, oof, what the hell are you going to do? It's a very different thing to say there is a lab funded by U.S. tax dollars that is working on gain of function research, and this spilled out into the world and created this global pandemic. Like, obviously, there's so many levels of implications that are radically different from that scenario than the other one. And the reason why people are like dunking on you on Twitter isn't because they have some vested interest in the fact that this came from a lab rather than came from a wet market. They're dunking on you because you and people like you, and look, I don't even know what Hasan would have said about this, but I know, you don't have to know, but that you would have just been mocking ruthlessly these people if they had said this 2 years ago or 3 years ago, as I did. You'd have just been mocking them. And not just mocking them, but like, people were ruined over this shit. People were ruined over this. That people's like medical professionals, scientists had their careers destroyed. People were kicked off of social media. People were labeled every vicious name in the book for even suggesting that maybe this was the case. And at the best, were mocked for it. And why was that? Not because that was racist, as you just pointed out. It's just as racist to say it came from a wet market as that, right? So why were they? Because that would point to the idea that the entire establishment was guilty.